we are praying for a new Pope. I'm sure new Pope will be as Franciscus, the same vision, the same dreams.
Cardinals from around the world have met and they have decided that the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis will begin on May 7th. Well, after the conclave starts, only those cardinals from around the world who are under the age of 80 will be able to enter the Sistine Chapel, and they will be locked in there.
Conclave comes from a Latin word meaning room that can be locked up, from the Latin com dash, together, and clavis, key.
And they will be locked in there.
Conclave comes from a Latin word meaning room that can be locked up, from the Latin com dash, together, and clavis, key.
Cardinals from around the world have met and they have decided that the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis will begin on May 7th.
Chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. You shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 each of animals that are unclean, a male and his female, also 7 each of birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth. For after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made." And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
Cardinals from around the world have met and they have decided that the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis will begin on May 7th.
Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. For after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made." And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to be flapping my jaws for the next 10 minutes. I want to bring in somebody that we had on our show quite some time ago. Okay? We had him on our show about, I don't know, I think it was last year. Was it last year he was last on our show? A man is very skillful comes to figuring out, it's sort of like it's almost calculus level of putting parameters together, figuring out the times that we're in, fitting it into the times and the rapture as well. He's a very clever man. You might have heard of him, Steve Fletcher. Brilliant man in his work. I've watched a lot of his videos. I've been watching his channel for quite a long time now. And been wanting to get him on my show. I got him on my show one time and he had to go early. He had things to do. We also have another man that's very clever at what he does. It's very sophisticated. He brings down, narrows down the time frames of the rapture dates, which they're not setting dates. We're just narrowing down, calculating where this window could be for the rapture and everything around it, how the data supports it. End Time Dreams and Vision as Bob Barber as well will be with us tonight. We'd like to welcome him back. So Steve Fletcher will be with us tonight. And we also have Derek. So I'm going to bring these guys on. We have a very powerful panelist tonight. So let's give them the respect by subscribing to their channel. So let's welcome them all back right now, folks. How you doing, fellas?
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody.
Hey, guys.
Hey, brother Steve. How you doing?
Hey, Bob.
All right.
Doing good.
Well,
right.
We're going to start off with Steve Fletcher. Steve, tell us how your week was, man.
Wow. Okay. Well, we just had Holy Week here, so we've been pretty busy. I'm just getting over like a little bug here. We went to Bacalar Lagoon, like a 5-hour trip from here, and we had our baptism day yesterday. 6 people got baptized at our church, and
Amen.
I'm going to be putting an update video on everything that's been happening here. And so we had a busy week with Palm Sunday and a Holy Tuesday service, a Holy Thursday service, Good Friday service, and then a week later we just had our baptisms. So yeah, it's been really good, really busy, really fruitful, and really thankful to just still be here in the Lord's service, sharing messages on YouTube, but also staying busy in the ministry down here where I've been. I left Minnesota when I was 23, and I'm 56 now, so I've been here 33 years, and it's been a real blessing to be in the Lord's service.
Amen. Steve, you look good for your age, buddy. You're looking like in your early 40s.
Thank you.
Whatever it is you're doing, keep it up, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Derek, how was your week?
It's been pretty good. A little crazy today. Today was a long day. You know, I had a sick calf, and so I had to play doctor to a sick calf. We'll find out tomorrow if it made it through the night or not. Then I spent the rest of the day on the tractor, and so I'm just kind of like, among giants here tonight. You got Steve, you got Bob, and then you got me scraping the bottom of the barrel. But I brought the T-shirt for you tonight. I wore my special T-shirt just for you, Rick. Let me show it to you. Let me move my mic.
You know what, Derek? I'm sorry I didn't mention you at the beginning of the lineup. We do have a brilliant man here, guys. Why he's showing this shirt? Don't panic. Derek is very good with his Bible study. You want to study a good deep dive study into the Bible, in the deepest parts of the Bible, check out Derek's channel. I didn't properly introduce you, Derek, either.
No,
I just went
fine,
right
bro.
to Steve and Bob, and I kind of I forgot. So
You're fine,
my apologies.
Bro. But I did. I wore my special shirt for you tonight, and it's got a thumbs up too. So see the thumbs up. You need to like this
let me
video.
zoom
people.
in on it. Hold on.
You gotta like this video. See, I got the thumbs up. It doesn't show real good because
What is that? What is that symbol?
It's actually, this comes from the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, whatever. They made a TV series and a movie out of it. But, in this movie, it was, kind of, I don't recommend this for theology, guys. Don't watch this movie for theology. It was a fun movie to watch. Don't watch it for theology. But, like, the whole planet was going to be destroyed, and their version of a rapture was you put a towel around your neck and you gave a thumbs up, and you got beamed off the planet before the destruction. Now, that's going to happen to us, but I just love the don't panic, because we're in some crazy prophetic times right now, aren't we? I mean, this warranted the don't panic shirt, because we are in some crazy prophetic times. We've got the Pope that just died. We've got this other Looney Tune standing up claiming that he's the Pope and he's the Mahdi and he's all this other stuff. Honestly, I thought this guy might have just been trolling us. In the beginning, I thought, is this guy just trolling us? I mean, is he just making, like, who ever heard of this guy? And all of a sudden he's everywhere. And for the record, I don't think he's the Antichrist, because, we tell everybody, look, the Antichrist is not going to be revealed until we're out of here. And so we're still here. So for the record, I just think he's another in the long line of loons, kind of like David Koresh was back in the 90s, but he is an Antichrist for sure. But anyway, yeah, it's been a crazy week, man. I'm ready for a good conversation. Can't wait to hear what Steve has to say tonight.
Oh, yeah. We give him more of the floor this time around, guys. Last time we kind of just we didn't let him talk as much, so I'm gonna give him more of the floor tonight, guys. I'm really interested to hear what he's got to say about this, about the Antichrist, this guy that's showing up, and all the timing of this. Bob, how was your week?
And my week has been going really good too. A lot of interesting things are happening now, and I'm very pleased with the things that are happening now, because we are looking at we're starting to see deadlines here. Okay. You guys pretty much covered it all. Well, we have it was one thing after another. You had the death of the Pope, Klaus Schwab steps down. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this Mahdi dude, Hashem, whatever, goes viral. He's been around for a long time, actually. He just hasn't gone viral. I'm starting to see a lot of his content that he's been doing and establishing and stuff like that. So yeah, he's been around for a while, but thanks to people, somebody, maybe the Lord just said, hey, it's time for this guy. All right. I don't think this guy's the Antichrist by any stretch of the imagination. All he is just a runner-up on somebody auditioning for the role, because we're still here. Okay. The first seal has not been open, and the Antichrist has yet to be revealed. So I don't think this guy's the Antichrist. And I'm sure Steve Fletcher will probably agree, but unless he doesn't, unless he convinces me otherwise.
And we could be wrong too, right, Bob? I mean, you and I, this is crazy times we're in. So, we could be wrong until he sits on that throne in the third temple. I don't think anybody's going to know for sure. Huh?
Well, let me just say real quick, Bob, I'm going to piggyback what you just said, and then we're going to hand it over to Steve. Guys, listen to me. I don't know if you saw the beginning of my show, Bob, where it showed me talking about my thumbnail to my YouTube. Did you see that video yet? Where it shows me talking about, you have to rewind it to the beginning or just it's on there. But when I made that YouTube, it was a year ago. It had a picture of a man that I told AI just put an Antichrist in that TV set above. It's not a big, it's a big monitor above a crowd of people for the Mark the Beast system. What's strange is this guy they look almost identical in the pictures. And I don't know, it's kind of creepy how that a year ago this was made. So, but the Antichrist, no one knows who he is. He's out there, he's waiting. He doesn't even know he's probably the Antichrist yet, or he may think he is. Satan has got to recruit somebody to be perfect for the job. We don't know who that is. But what if, and let's think outside the box, okay? I like to question everything. Let's say this man turns out, it gets a lot of traction everywhere. All of a sudden, heads start turning to this man. And Satan goes, I might like this guy to be my man. All Satan has to do, when the rapture comes, we're out of here. Satan can approach this man. So look, you've got traction all around the world already. I can use a guy like you. And Satan shakes his hand. The moment he shakes his hand, he is activated. He's been given the full power that he needs to take the world over. And believe me, folks, this could work. Okay? People out there are going to disregard him as some nut job or someone that's a false prophet. Right now, I'm not saying he's the Antichrist, which we don't know who he is. Right now, I'm not saying, all I'm saying is he's just some counterfeiter auditioning. We don't know who he is. Okay? I'm not in no way saying he's the Antichrist. But let's keep our eye on this guy. L.A. Mazzulli put out a video today on it. Okay? He said to keep our eye on this guy. Pretty interesting. Steve, Fletcher, what are your thoughts on all that? And the timing of it, with the Pope being dead.
Well, I saw something today. I've been seeing these things that are pointing to quite possibly Israel's 77th birthday, May 14th. And the first thing I saw on that was, I don't know why they chose this date for Real ID, but Real ID is going mandatory on May 7th. And I was like, why May 7th? And then the other thing was, it's a Wednesday, like for no reason, in the middle of nothing. And then it just, it's 7 days before Israel's 77th birthday. Now, I'm not saying that Real ID is the mark of the beast, because they don't really give people an option. I mean, when they're doing these licenses and these new licenses, I mean, they basically, yes, you have to agree to accept it, but what it just means is that the system is in place for them to control the global population. It's, this has been happening in other countries, but now it's going mainstream in the United States. For example, about a month ago, my son got married in Colorado, and we traveled. My wife is Mexican, but she's got her American citizenship now, and she has her American passport. But we went across the border into Colorado, and we went through customs, and we didn't have to show our passport. We just looked at the camera. They said, "Look at the camera," and we all looked at the camera. Okay, you go through. You know, it's like, what's going on here? I mean, it's not about a piece of paper anymore. It's about a system that's already in place for them to track and control, you know. And so now on May 7th, that goes mandatory. So that was the first thing I saw. And then today when I saw that, okay, we've been wondering about the Pope, and he died. And then we have the whole prophecy of St. Malachi was Pope Francis is the last Pope. I mean, we've been waiting for this whole St. Francis, this whole St. Malachi prophecy to line up with Pope Francis as the last Pope. And now it's like Pope Francis is dead. And so, okay, we were one off, and now it's the next Pope. And it's like, do we have to wait a whole nother, series of events and a number of more years as a new Pope comes in, and then it's the next Pope that's going to take us into the tribulation. Okay, but here's where it's all lining up with what I see is Pope Francis being the last Pope, leading us to quite possibly May 14th, Israel's 77th birthday. Now, here's the connection. The conclave that was just announced, I don't know if they announced it yesterday or today, but I saw the news today. And like I said, I've been busy throughout this week. I haven't really been following many news items this week. I did see the Iran explosion that, over, 30 people killed and thousands of injured. Huge explosion at the port. And if they're blaming it on Israel, or I don't know, it's proof that they have materials, chemical nuclear materials in the port. And this explosion caused way more damage than anyone could have imagined. But so that's beyond, who knows where all that's going to go. But other than that, this news that I saw today, the conclave is going to begin on May 7th. Okay, so I looked up this information and I confirmed it. The conclave will begin May 7th. And then the word conclave means together. Con is together, and clave is under lock and key. So they're together, shut in, under lock and key. Okay, they're in a locked room, and no one gets in or out until they decide on a new pope. Okay, so this connects with, on the Hebrew calendar, if you go to the evening of May 14th on the Hebrew calendar, it's the 10th day of the second month. And that lines up with what is revealed to us in Genesis chapter 7, that on the 10th day of the seventh month, they were shut into the ark, and they were in the ark for 7 days. And on the 17th day of the second month, the flood began. So if you go from May 7th to May 14th in the evening, which if we go into the evening, it actually lines up best with the true rebirth of Israel 77 years ago, because the mandate for Israel was given at midnight, going from May 14th to May 15th. So you've got the 70 years of Israel plus the 7 years, and everything really started. If you look at the prophecy line with Donald Trump, it all started with his declaration and his moving the embassy to Jerusalem on Israel's 70th birthday. And then the next day was the Clade X pandemic exercise, where COVID began. If you consider the fact that COVID started on March 11th, 2020, and you go back 666 days, it's May 15th, 2018. It's the day they started the Clade X pandemic exercise. So exactly 7 years ago, the whole pandemic began right on Israel's 70th birthday. So there's something happening with all of that. So connecting Real ID, connecting the conclave date with getting shut into the ark, being closed in under lock and key, God shut the door, right? And then 7 days later, the flood begins. And the other thing that was connecting this was basically the timeline of when they want to have the Iran nuclear deal done. Because Trump had said, he sent a letter to Iran in March. The meetings didn't start till April, but the letter stated there was a 2-month timeline. He sent that letter on March 19th. And so when I did a couple videos about this, and if it's on my page, the last video I just did this video about the conclave and this, all the date connections. I just put that out about a half hour ago. But all the links to this other information are right there. And so what we see then is that there's a time frame for the Iran nuclear deal to be finalized, and it's mid-May. So that's lining up. Now, the other thing that connects with the 7 years is that it was May of 2018, remember 7 years ago, when Donald Trump canceled the original agreement. And now there's a new agreement. So as an Iran nuclear deal was canceled in May, I think it was May 8th of 2018. So again, that lines up with 7-day warning to Israel's 70th birthday. And now on middle of May, there's a new agreement. So is that part of the covenant? 70 years are determined, covenant with many for 7 years. And I mean, we're right here. And then all of this has happened, and all of the AI now, and all of the COVID, and all of the control, and now we've got Real ID. And I mean, they're ready for their takeover. They're ready. And so I think we're a lot closer than most people think. I think there's a lot of people that are looking at this Pope dead, and now we got to wait for a new Pope and maybe a few more years. And I don't think so. I think we're closer than anybody could realize.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, folks, I couldn't have broke it that is good. I couldn't have broke it down as good as he did. Okay, but what he said there, folks, is the truth. We got very short time ahead of us. The chair is open. There's nobody in the Pope's chair. They're looking to put another guy in there. Now, if God says this is it, we need the Antichrist, that means the rapture has to take place, folks. And it has to be very quickly, because they're going to do this in 4 weeks. I heard 4 weeks, and they want to get somebody in there by that time. Now, that's just a rumor. It could take longer. So, Bob, what do you think the urgency is behind all this? What's happening, man?
I think it's interesting. You've mentioned that they think that the 112th Pope may not have been Francis. Francis may have been the 111th one. So maybe they messed up their count. But I remember Tom Horn, when he brought all that stuff to light, he showed how Francis's name was Peter the Roman. He did that. So everybody was convinced that Francis was the final Pope. So, it's an extra biblical prophecy, but the prophecy has been very, I've talked about this before, ad nauseum. That prophecy has been very accurate in predicting all the popes, where they come from, their names and everything. Okay. So whether this means that Francis was 111th and then the next guy is the 112th, or Francis was 112th and now it's Judgment Day, either way, it's Daniel's 70th week about to begin right now. Either way, because the prophecy for the popes, the 112th Pope, the prophecy was that he will lead his people through many tribulations. Okay. So that's Judgment Day, essentially. Okay. Now, Daniel's 70th week, that's Judgment Day right there. So, of course, the judgment I think that they're going to see at the Vatican, will it happen right at the beginning of the tribulation? Or will their judgment come with the 7 trumpet judgments at midway through the tribulation? Okay. And like I said before, and I'll say again, we're right in line for 2032, 2033. Okay. That's where we see the return of Jesus Christ coming. Okay. So we're kind of in this smoggy area right now because we're looking so closely for a moment in time event called the rapture resurrection that is so difficult to pinpoint. It's impossible for us to do it. Okay. And if you were able to do it, then you are an absolutely incredible person to be able to achieve that. So I can't predict the moment, the twinkle of an eye, no matter how good my charts are. So I cannot predict the exact day or nothing like that. All I can do is speculate. But what we can see is this by just a gigantic, ugly 7-year Daniel 70th week coming. We could see this big, ugly train coming down the road, and we could see it because we could see all the setups for it right now. And right now we're looking at a setup for it. And it's very interesting that Pope Francis, right when he died, Klaus Schwab stepped down from the World Economic Forum. So you got the World Economic Leadership position opened up and the spiritual leadership position opened up essentially on the same day. Okay. You got Trump, who is now aligning the cryptocurrency of America. It's called Freedom Coin or Liberty Coin. And he's going to be essentially declaring next month, just like Steve was saying here about the real ID next month as well. Well, next month they're predicting where they're saying that Trump is going to declare the dollar is no longer the reserve currency of America. It will now be a cryptocurrency called Liberty Coin. And if you don't get on board Liberty Coin, you're out. Okay, whatever that means. All right. So we're going full speed right now to a cashless society. All right. And Trump, with that huge budget for that gigantic AI data centers, which is probably going to be the biggest in the world, essentially that's going to be running everything they need for the market to be, at least up until that point for the mid-trib. Okay. Yeah. I don't think if they do put in a Pope, Steve, I don't think we're going to watch this Pope, do his thing and go around the world, kiss a bunch of babies, and watch all that for the next 5 years before the tribulation begins. That's my opinion.
I agree with Bob. I agree with everything you just said, brother. And I think it's interesting, this whole Malachi prophecy thing. Malachi, Malachi, if you're Italian. I love that. I'm a little bit Italian, so I can represent from the say it's Malachi, right? Anyway, this whole Malachi prophecy thing, right? So we know it's not a biblical prophecy. We know it's not in the Bible. But, what does the Bible say about a prophet? They have to be 100% accurate. And this prophecy has been, up until Francis, 100% accurate. I mean, it's been stunningly accurate, predicting all these popes up until Francis. Now, having said that, Francis, to me, I know what Tom Horn said about, him being of Italian heritage, but he was from Brazil or something, wasn't he? I think he was from down in Brazil, South America for sure. I know that, so I always kind of thought it was a little bit of a stretch to call him Peter the Roman. And I'm going to be very curious seeing who's coming next because, if we compare this to kind of like our own elections here in America, right? So we had Trump 4 years ago. Then we had Biden. Now we've got Trump again. Okay. So Trump was president number 45. Then Biden was 46. Now Trump is 47, right? But there are people that listen, I'm not saying, okay, YouTube, as far as I'm concerned, that was the most fairest, most legitimate election that we had 4 years ago, in 2020. That was no shady business there, right? But there are people that say that Joe Biden is not a legitimate president, that he was not elected legitimately. So if I'm just saying, let's hypothetical, if that was true, if that was the case, then would Biden have actually been our 46th president if he was just kind of like, some people called him a president with a silent P. In other words, he was just a resident of the White House. He wasn't really president. In other words, when you're playing that numbers game, look at the Pope. What if, let's just war game it out. What if Francis really wasn't legitimate? Because he only got in there because Benedict stepped down, which was kind of unheard of. That only happened one other time in history. So what if, we're playing that game? We don't know. The other thing too that's interesting, Bob, tying in with what you're saying about the digital currency coming in AI. I heard recently on a show that I was listening to, it was, I wish I could remember the guy's name. He was the former CEO of Google. That's all I remember. I can't remember his name now. Some of you guys maybe can type it in if you know, but former CEO of Google. He said that right now, currently, AI is using about, I think they said about 3% of the power grid. They need like 3% of all power to power these massive server farms that power AI. But what he said was, as AI grows, as it begins to self-teach, he predicts that within 3 years, AI and the server farms that are going to be required will need up to 90% of our power grid. This is why they're talking about building nuclear reactors and all kinds of stuff to power the AI. So, the changes that are coming very, very quickly are massive. And like I said, we're just sitting here talking about it. It's going to come so swiftly, so massively. I love what Steve was talking about with the timeline and how the conclave ties into being locked in the ark. I mean, that's just, I never even thought about that. That's amazing to think of. We're definitely, I still hold to the fact that we are in the zone. We are in such a zone of potential chaos right now that right now would be the perfect time for the rapture to happen, for, the Antichrist to take power. It's not going to happen until we're gone. So it's got to happen. But you know what? Like my shirt says, don't panic. Don't panic. We got the Holy Spirit, just like the thumbs up. We're going up. When that time comes, the Lord's going to sound that trumpet. We're going up. We don't have to panic. We've got nothing to worry about. So,
well, we got 15 minutes until we take a little break. I'm just going to do 5 minutes per person. Then we'll take a little timeout break. I want to know, this is a question for all. We'll start with Steve. Steve, do you think, since we're in a Jubilee year, I don't know if I said that right, Jubilee? Okay. Jubilee, yeah. 50-year Jubilee. I wish, what's his name was on here, Repo Man. I did send him an invite. I don't know if you know who he is, Steve, but he's a calculus level man too, as well. And he does pretty big, deep insight like you guys do. According to that, I heard the 50th year, we're on it. And if we are, we don't have to wait another 50 years. I know that's not going to happen. Things are just too hot for that to happen. We know that everything is set up for this Antichrist to come onto the world scene. The only thing that's left is us being gone. That is the next event on the calendar. Okay? Do you foresee that since we're in a 50th Jubilee year and you have any evidence, maybe supporting evidence, like extra evidence you want to throw in there, why you think this year will count more than any year down the road? I don't know if that question is good for you guys or not. I'll start with you, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had always seen the Jubilee connected to 1917 with the retaking of Jerusalem on Hanukkah in 1917 when the captain, what was his name? The captain of Great Britain came in and walked into Jerusalem.
Yeah, Allenby,
right?
Yeah. Yes.
Allenby, yeah. And so, and then that connected to 1967 and the recapturing of Jerusalem with the 6-Day War. And then 2017, really the 70 years of Israel, whether you go from the Palestinian partition plan or from the rebirth of Israel in 1948. So I don't know. I mean, I had always seen the Jubilee as like 2017, 2018, and that we're 7 years in. I'm not sure exactly on that. The other thing that I was seeing over the last few days that I was connecting to this kind of mid-May timeline is and these types of news come out, and we never know if they're real or if they're fear, if they're fear mongering or if they're just false alarms or causing people just to falsely panic. But this whole tariff thing, they're saying that within 2 weeks that the shelves are going to be empty, and that the tariff wars are really going to kick in once they stopped receiving the shipments into the ports, and that there's going to be empty shelves, the prices are going to skyrocket, and all of that is kind of connecting to the same the same time frame of the conclave, the same time frame as this new real ID. I mean, it's like they're setting everything. Okay, the way I see it is like they're setting everything up for the implementation of what Bob was saying, whether it's a digital or cryptocurrency, and the dollars, the physical dollars, are no longer going to be valid, and you're going to have to have a digital account, and you're going to be forced, and they're pushing everybody to accept it by the fact that, there's no greater motivator than not being able to eat. If people aren't going to be able to get their groceries, then they'll do anything, even if it's a matter of killing people, zombie apocalypse, or whatever is going to entail from this. But all of that is kind of connecting too. So you've got the real ID, you've got the downgrade of the dollar, you've got the digital currency they have ready. AI is ready to take over. And then, the tariff war is now going to compound everything with people not being able to get their groceries. And so I think that, I don't know if this has to be a Jubilee year for this to be the year, but I think Israel's 77th birthday is like one of the biggest, like Trump's big number was 77, right? 777. He was born 700 days before Israel's rebirth. 700 days before May 14th, 1948 was Donald Trump's birthday. He was sworn in and took office on 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days. And there's a lot of other 777 connections leading to his second election as well. So he's 77, and now Trump's the big connection to Israel and 77th birthday of Israel. I don't know. I think it's prophetically more significant than most people are seeing.
Wow. And Bob, what do you think?
That thing turned off. There you go. Yeah, that's very significant. 77th birthday, 7-year tribulation. Okay, all these sevens converging right now. Okay, and Trump with the tariffs and everything, he's destroying the dollar. You hear now there's like, okay, it used to be 150,000, you don't have to pay taxes. Now he just announced on Truth Social it's $200,000 a year. You don't have to pay taxes. He keeps on raising the ante. First, they started off with no tax on tips, which is like, $10,000 a year. He keeps on raising the ante. So that just goes to show you one thing. They're getting rid of the dollar completely. As soon as he's like building up all this momentum. And eventually he's just going to say, hey, you know what? No tax. I don't care if you make $10 million a year. No tax. Okay. And he's already saying that there's no tax on cryptocurrency gains and stuff like that. He is making it so easy and so profitable. He's creating all this room here for cryptocurrency to absolutely flourish here in the United States. Okay. And we know the United States is not in Bible prophecy, or at least not too long. Okay. I think the United States gets decimated during the trumpet judgments. Okay. But be it as it may, though, Trump is setting everything up now beautifully. And the timing, it can't get any better. Israel's 77th birthday coming up. That's huge. Okay. The real ID, May 5th, All Souls, a Cinco de Mayo, is actually the kind of the false Independence Day of Mexico, but yet America celebrates on Cinco de Mayo independence. And here we are. What's it?
I think it's May 7th. Sorry.
Real May ID. 7th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. May 7th. Okay. Well, it's still right there. It's still right there. Mexican Independence Day, and here we are deporting everybody. So it's kind of a soft spot right there, So, yeah, as we don't have much longer now, for sure.
It just hit me. I'm going to get to you, Derek. Just 1 second. I want to say this real quick before I forget. Wonder why God let Trump live through that bullet going by his head. Because if it hit his head, all this wouldn't have happened, folks. That's why God says, you know what? This man, and God sees the future perfectly, infinitely. He says if Trump wins, He's going to cause all this to happen to make it perfectly line with the Antichrist. As you can see, look what happened. Bullet misses his head, grazes his ear. He's in there, and look at everything that's happened. Now we know why. This is one of the probably all the biggest reasons why he kept him around. God needs him. Now, question is, how long is God going to use Trump to set up all this? Trump doesn't know he's being used, folks, by God and probably Satan too. He doesn't know it. He doesn't know it because he's being used to set things up. Digital currency is the mark of the beast, folks. Look at it. The coin, that crypto stuff is going to be what the Antichrist uses. Derek, go ahead.
Rick, I was going to say something totally different, but before I say it, I got to say you're absolutely right with it, with what you just said. You know, listen, you guys, those of you that are longtime watchers, you could go back to previous episodes of Departure Heaven, go back to previous episodes of Uptime over there on Black Swan, anywhere that I was a guest on any of the panels. Go back around October, November when this election was going on, and I kept telling you, I kept saying, I said, look, God has a plan for America for blessing, and he can do that under Trump or under Kamala. And he's got a plan for America for judgment, and he could do that under Trump or under Kamala. If you are not 100% sold out for Jesus and wanting to lead this country in the ways of righteousness, the ways he's called forth in his Bible, this country has gone far too long scoffing at God. So it's like, okay, yeah, Trump dodged the bullet. He got in. But look at what our country is going through, or what we're about to go through. You know, just what Steve was saying. We've got about till the middle of May, and we're going to find out who's going to play chicken, who's going to blink first, because either China's going to blink and say, okay, we'll drop our tariffs and trade will resume, or, Trump may have to blink because, like what Steve was saying, there's like a lag time. There's about a month lag time from the time that those tariffs go into place. There's about a month lag time of stuff making it overseas and making it here. And what I've heard conservative estimates that said, like, if you remember back to the pandemic and you remember what the supply chain, when it started to break down in the pandemic, when we as Americans first started getting used to not seeing things on our shelves, because all of our lives, I can remember when the Soviet Union collapsed. And part of the reason it collapsed is because dissidents from the Soviet Union came over to America, saw our grocery stores full of stuff, and was like, hey, how come we don't have this back home? America's always been a prosperous nation. You've been able to go into a grocery store, Walmart, get whatever you want. If you remember that little tick that we got when the pandemic, and how all of a sudden you go into Walmart and you can't always find everything you want anymore. You order a part for your car or your washing machine or your dishwasher. You can't always get the part because the supply chain started to break down. I have heard conservative estimates that what we saw in those days was about 20% of the supply chain. What we are likely to see in the next couple of weeks, like what Steve is talking about, is going to be as much as 60% of our supply chain. How do you think that's going to affect America when that happens? If that happens that way, oof, look out, guys. Look out.
Yeah, like I said, when the shelves go empty, folks, people are going to be crying for somebody to save their butt. They want to eat tonight. They want to eat it. Those big dinners are going to be gone, folks. They'll be snacking for dinner instead of a full dinner because of this whole thing that's going on. But like I said, the Antichrist comes onto the world scene. He's going to fix it all. He's going to fill the shelves right back up again. And everybody's going to say, oh, I love this guy. Where was he when he needed him? The whole world will worship. They will marvel over what he can do. Look at the Bible, what it says about. They marvel over him. They worship him. They love him. And then he turns on society like a dog on his owner. At the middle of the 3.5 year period, he turns, he calls himself God. You know how all that goes. That's an ugly scene that's going to happen. And the mark of the beast, oh, now I know why they did all this, why they turned everything upside down. They got rid of the dollar. It's because of this mark thing. We knew it was coming, folks. We're telling you right now where it's all leading to. So we're going to take a quick little commercial break, folks. I want to thank, we almost have 500 people almost tuned in tonight. What a big audience tonight.